Hey everybody, Eric here at Black Flag Armory, and today let's talk about suppressors. If you go online and try to do some research on your own, it can be overwhelming. There's a ton of different options, there's a ton of information, lots of it good, some of it not so good. So what I want to do today is just kind of go over some of the basics, just get your general questions answered. We'll go into a little bit of detail about the types of suppressors, how they attach, their best uses, rating, some of those kinds of things, just to make it a little easier for you so we can get some information at the front end and get you ready to go. All right, let's start with the basics. What are suppressors? What do? Suppressors are a device that attaches to the barrel of your gun, whether it's a handgun or a rifle, and they help to suppress the sound of the blast. Now, it's not like you see in movies where it's dead silent, where you could fire a gun and someone 10 feet away has no idea what's going on. Guns are always going to be noisy, but with the aid of a suppressor, it's much quieter, it's much more hearing safe, and a whole lot less disruptive to either the people around you or the environment. The biggest cause of sound from firing a gun is the rapid expansion of gas as it leaves that barrel, because you've got hot gas that moves very, very quickly, and thus it's breaking that sound barrier, moving around 1,125 feet per second or higher. It gets you that sonic boom, which is that big loud crack. What suppressors do is they have chambers. There are a couple different types. We'll talk about that in a minute. And what those chambers do is they catch that gas. So they help it cool down and they slow it down so that less of it is exiting the front of the suppressor through your exit past that bullet. So as less gas exits, there's less noise. Now, depending on the round that you're shooting and the firearm that you're shooting from, it's still going to be noisy. Things like .22 LR and handgun calibers tend to suppress better because the bullets are already moving slower. Anything moving past 1,125 feet per second is breaking the speed of sound. So if you're shooting a rifle round that's leaving the barrel at 2,500 feet per second, it's moving pretty quick. That bullet itself is going to have a sonic boom, but with the suppression of the gases, that boom is more directed forward as it is directly out away from the front of the can and towards you. So suppressors are super fun. They do some really cool things. They definitely help break up the flash typically as well. So if you've got a gun that has a lot of flash, which is just those burnt gases exiting the barrel, that holds those gases internally and lets them come out a little more slowly, so there's less of that big blinding flash. Typically, you've got three kinds of suppressors. You've got rimfire, you've got pistol, and you've got rifle suppressors. They all have different builds, different manufacturers, different models, different qualities. But essentially, they're all doing that same thing, like I talked about. They've got different chambers or baffles that slow those gases down, so it's not making quite as much noise once you pull that trigger. Your rimfire suppressors come in two varieties. You've got those that are rated typically for just .22 LR, and then you've got your Magnum rated suppressors, which will do .22 LR, .22 Magnum, 17 HMR, and 5.7 by 28. They are going to be smaller, lighter, less expensive, and they're just about always going to be direct thread. Now, pistol suppressors are a little bit different because most of your handguns, which are shooting 9, 45, 380, whatever it may be, they have a tilt barrel, which means that that barrel on the gun is not fixed in place. So in order for that gun to cycle properly, that barrel needs to unlock and it moves back a little bit, and then as the slide cycles, that barrel tilts up, ejecting the casing and allowing the new round to feed in. Now, if you just put a chunk of metal that weighed 10, 12, 14 ounces on the front of a threaded barrel on one of those handguns, you combine that with all the pressure of those gases going forward, chances are your barrel's not going to be able to move anywhere. It's going to be stuck in place, you'll have a single shot gun, and that kind of takes away all your fun. What you're going to find in most handgun suppressors is what's called a Neilson device. People call it a booster system or a piston system. They all mean the same thing. They're talking about the same kind of feature here. And the way that that works is you've got something like this that's going to be built into the back of your suppressor. What this piece does is it allows a little bit of extra back pressure to help cycle that slide. And it also, with this spring here, allows the barrel and the suppressor to cycle independently of each other. Think of a piston in your car or a shock in your car where you've got two pieces that are together, but they're kind of doing one of these motions. So as the barrel goes back, the suppressor can move forward a little bit, allowing that barrel to continue movement. And that gets you consistent cycling among a variety of types of ammunition. Because sometimes you're going to be shooting just regular range ammo, sometimes you're shooting a specific subsonic, heavier duty competition type of ammo. So this Neilson device or booster or piston system is a great invention that allows a much more broad variety of ammo to be shot through the firearm and through the suppressor with a whole lot less headache. Rifle cans tend to be a little more simple. They tend to be built of stronger materials because your rifle rounds typically have a whole lot higher pressure, a lot more gunpowder, a lot more gas, bigger boom, so you gotta contain those things. So you want strong materials, titanium, stainless steel, or some kind of a hybrid of both that's been really popular the last several years. Typically, as far as rifle suppressors go, you've got two types. You've got a direct thread and you've got quick detach. Direct thread, just like we talked about with the rimfire stuff, is exactly what it sounds like. The back of the suppressor has threads that attaches directly to your barrel, which makes it lighter, it's easier, you don't have to worry about extra moving parts and pieces. The downside is that if you do want to use it across multiple rifles, it's not quite as quick, and if you have different thread pitches, you need to buy thread adapters or things to make that specific suppressor work on all your different rifles. Neither of those things are a huge detriment. A lot of the times your direct thread suppressors are going to be a little bit less expensive because the manufacturing process is simpler, so they tend to be less expensive, usually a little bit lighter weight because there's no fancy mechanisms built into them. The way that your quick detach suppressors work is they will mount over a muzzle device. That can be a muzzle brake, a flash hider, or a combination, and everyone has their own style. Silencer code, dead air, Q, surefire. They've all got different types and different styles that do essentially the same thing. The benefit of the quick detach style is that you can buy your muzzle device for several different guns across several different thread pitches and several different calibers and use one suppressor for all those different things. Instead of having to take it off every time by unscrewing the whole thing, it's usually just a couple of clicks or a couple of bigger threads, so your interchangeability is really nice. And a lot of these suppressors that are using a quick detach system, you can purchase different end caps. So if you've got a 30 caliber suppressor, you can put it on a 5.56, you can put a different end cap on there, which is gonna help tone that down just a little bit more. As far as rifle cans go, most common, you're gonna see stuff rated up to 30 caliber. 30 cal is kind of the most common, and those are rated up to 300 Winchester Magnum. Now that means it'll shoot anything 300 Winchester Magnum and smaller. So that gets you 308, your 6.5, your 243, your 270, 5.56, all of those things, as long as it's physically smaller than that 0.3, 0.31 that's cut out for the baffles in there. If you're one of the guys or gals who shoots big bore, 45-70 or 45, and say you want one suppressor, there are options now for just a single thing. You can buy one suppressor rated up to anything 45 caliber and smaller, including rifle, which is cool. The downside of those is gonna be weight, because it's rated for so much pressure and such a high volume of gas and such a big round, it's gonna be a little bit heavier. Now, if you're putting this on a rifle and it's gonna live there, maybe that's not as big a deal, but it is something to consider. The big question, how do you buy a suppressor and how does the process work? Buying a suppressor is pretty easy. Once you know what you want, you can either come to us and we'll get it ordered for you. You can order it through any online retailer and have it shipped here. And then you've just got to do some paperwork. The paperwork to purchase a suppressor is called a Form 4 through the ATF. And basically what that is, it's a register of transfer of an NFA item. And what that means is you do some paperwork, that gets sent off with a couple fingerprint cards, a check to the ATF because government's got to get their cut, and a couple of passport photos. There are lots of ways of doing that. You can do physical forms, they can be filled out online and printed and signed. We use a Kiosk from Silencer Shop, which is a digital device that makes it really, really easy. The cool thing with the Kiosk is that you can do all of your information one time, and then it saves a lot of stuff for you. So any future suppressor purchase, all needs to be done is have the suppressor in hand here at the store or your local store, where they've got a serial number. They attach that to your account with your email, and you get an email to do a DocuSign. And then as soon as that's processed, Silencer Shop populates all the paperwork and sends off the ATF for you. Right now, the current lead times on Form 4s varies. The average we've been seeing is around 7 or 8 months. Sometimes it's a little bit faster, sometimes it's a little bit slower. Now, a lot of you are gonna ask, what's the best first suppressor you can buy? And it's gonna vary. It depends on what your needs are, what your budget is. Do you want something that does multiple calibers? Do you want something that just does a single caliber? Do you wanna be able to move it around to a lot of different guns or not? That's gonna be up to you. There are a lot of great options out there. You can get great suppressors all said and done for as inexpensive as around 400 bucks and all the way up to several $1,000s, depending on how crazy you want to go, how big you want it to be, and how fancy the name you want. In our experience, most people start with a rifle suppressor. You're shooting an AR-15, maybe you've got a bolt gun, you're doing some long range shooting either just for fun or hunting or competition, and something like a 30 caliber can is great because it covers a variety of calibers, and not many people are shooting a whole lot bigger than 308 or 30-06, maybe the occasional 300 Win Mag, but having one suppressor that can do multiple things on multiple guns gives you a lot more versatility for your money. Typically speaking, multi-cal rifle suppressors that are quick detach are going to start for the suppressor itself in the $500 neighborhood and kind of go from there. Obviously, availability and brand name have a huge impact on some of these things. Just look at something that's got a good reputation behind it and double check that warranty. Most of these rifle companies have a lifetime warranty, which is great because in the off chance that something does happen, say you spent $600 or $800 or $1,000 and you waited 9 or 10 months for this great thing, and after 6 months something happens and you have a baffle strike or your quick detach system stops working. Thankfully, most of these companies will take care of you. They've got great reputations, great people working behind them, and they understand that this is an investment. This isn't an inexpensive thing that you just buy and toss around. For most people, they only buy a couple. It's the weight and the expense, and it doesn't make it an everyday thing for everybody. It's a worthwhile investment in our opinion. Once people have that rifle caliber covered, people tend to either go handgun or rimfire. Shooting 22 LR suppressed out of a bolt gun, it's about as much fun as you're gonna have shooting a gun. Guys, I think that covers everything. If you really want to take a deep dive into the science of suppressors and get some awesome reviews, Jay over at pewscience.com, P-E-W science.com, has a ton of information. He's a guy that I've followed for a while now online. He does incredible reviews. He talks about sound signature, sound reduction. They have their own rating system that's really, really consistent and really, really cool. So if you get a chance and really want to just dig deep into this stuff, that's a great resource for you.